Millions of engines from the most trusted brands in the world are failing right now. Toyota, Honda, General Motors, trucks that cost $80,000, dead before 40,000 miles. And here's what makes this story different from every other recall you've heard about. Each company has a completely different explanation for what went wrong. But engineers who've torn these engines apart are starting to notice something none of the manufacturers want to talk about. The same component keeps failing. Every single time. GM engines losing power at highway speed. No warning, no light. Toyota Tundras, $75,000 trucks, dead at 35,000 miles. Honda V6s throwing connecting rods through the engine block. At first, these looked like three separate problems from three separate companies. A bad batch of parts here, a machining error there. They weren't. The first crack appeared inside one of the most expensive engines General Motors builds. The L87, a 6.2-liter V8, the heart of the Escalade, the Tahoe, the Silverado High Country, vehicles costing between $70,000 and $120,000. Something started destroying this engine from the inside. And the most terrifying part wasn't the failure itself, it was the silence before it. No check engine light, no knocking, no warning at all. Owners described the exact same moment, driving at highway speed, sometimes passing another car, and the engine simply shuts off. You're coasting toward the shoulder, hoping the car behind you reacts in time. One owner was at 70 miles per hour on a two-lane road when it happened. Another bought a brand new 2025 Escalade, drove it 953 miles, and watched the engine die on the freeway. Here's where it gets strange. GM didn't run one investigation into this engine. They ran four. February 2022, June 2023, July 2024. A full recall wasn't issued until April 2025. 3 years later, 597,630 vehicles affected. When the recall finally came, GM blamed supplier contamination, sediment in oil passages, out-of-spec components. Their fix for passing engines? Switch from 0W20 oil to 0W40. Twice as thick. Hold that detail, it becomes the smoking gun later, because the recall didn't hold. Replacement engines failed. NHTSA received 36 new failure reports after the oil change fix. Then investigators expanded the probe to 2019 and 2020 vehicles, built before GM's identified problem window. Either the contamination was far more widespread than GM admitted, or something else is going on entirely. Toyota's reliability wasn't just a marketing slogan, it was measured. JD Power surveys, Consumer Reports rankings, generations of owners driving Tundras past 300,000 miles without touching the engine. That reputation was built on one engine, the naturally aspirated 5.7-liter V8, almost indestructible, boring, in the best possible way. In 2022, Toyota retired it. The replacement, a 3.4-liter twin-turbocharged V6, more power, better fuel economy numbers, half a liter smaller. The skeptics were right. Toyota's first recall covered 102,000 Tundras and Lexus LX 600s. The cause? Machining debris migrating into the main bearings. The fix wasn't a patch, it was a complete engine replacement. Brand new long block assembly. That tells you everything about the severity, but the failures kept coming. By late 2025, Toyota had logged 2,604 warranty claims and 303 field reports. A second recall expansion added 2,024 Tundras, more LX 600s, and the Lexus GX 550. Total vehicles covered now, over 200,000. Toyota kept saying contamination, manufacturing issue, isolated production window. Then an independent engine builder finally tore one apart, and what he found changed the entire story. The main bearings, destroyed, friction welded to the block, crankshaft scored beyond repair. But the rod bearings, fed by the exact same oil circuit, were perfect, pristine, zero damage. Think about what that means. Debris doesn't have preferences. It doesn't selectively destroy one bearing and leave the next one untouched when both share the same oil passages. Contamination spreads, it damages what it touches. This engine showed catastrophic failure in one precise location, nothing anywhere else. That's not contamination behavior, that's a design characteristic, something specific about how oil reaches those main bearings, the passage geometry, the clearances, the bearing material itself. And here's where the story stops being about Toyota. Because that same pattern, one specific component failing while everything around it survives, shows up in the GM failures, in the Honda failures, across all three brands. 3 companies, 3 different engines, 3 completely different official explanations, but engineers looking at the wreckage keep finding the same thing. Honda's engine is the simplest of the 3. The J35, a 3.5-liter naturally aspirated V6, no turbo, no exotic technology, just a proven workhorse powering the Pilot on Odyssey, Ridgeline, and Acura MDX for years. In 2023, Honda recalled 249,000 of them. A grinding machine used to finish the crankshaft pins had been set incorrectly, creating a subtly wrong surface profile. The result, accelerated rod bearing wear until seizure. When a connecting rod bearing seizes at highway speed, the rod can fracture. A fractured rod doesn't stay inside the engine block. Honda replaced the engines. Case closed. Except it wasn't. By late 2024, 173 new failure reports came in. On vehicles outside the recalled window, Honda confirmed these newer failures didn't match the grinding defect they'd already fixed. By mid-2025, 414 reports. NHTSA opened a formal investigation covering 1.4 million vehicles, 6 times the original recall size. Honda says they're still investigating. What they do know, more than 400 people have reported failures on engines Honda already told them were safe. GM, contaminated supplier parts. Toyota, machining debris. Honda, a miscalibrated grinding machine. All 3 point to isolated, accidental, fixable production errors. But look at what's failing inside every one of these engines, and one thing stays constant: the lubrication system, specifically the microscopic oil film, thinner than a human hair, that keeps metal surfaces from destroying each other at thousands of RPM. That film has zero tolerance for disruption, and modern engines have systematically stripped away every safety margin around it. Fuel economy mandates pushed manufacturers to ultra-thin oils, oils barely thicker than water. Thinner oil demands near-perfect manufacturing cleanliness, because a particle that would flush harmlessly through thicker oil now lodges directly at a bearing surface. At the same time, these engines are producing more power from less displacement, cycling through start-stop dozens of times per commute, and managing cylinder deactivation that creates uneven crankshaft loads. Every single margin compressed simultaneously. This is not one company making one mistake. This is an entire industry building engines at the absolute edge of what the physics will allow, and here's the proof. GM's recall fix switched the oil from 0W20 to 0W40, twice as thick. If thin oil wasn't part of the problem, why is thicker oil part of the solution? You'd think 5 million failures would force a course correction. It hasn't. These failures aren't happening despite the system. They're happening because of it. Fuel economy targets still exist. The fines for missing them are still brutal. And automakers can no longer offset their trucks with EV credits the way they used to, so every fraction of a mile per gallon still has to come from the combustion engine itself. The manufacturers have already done the math. A predictable rate of engine failures, managed through warranty and recalls, costs less than missing those targets. Your engine's lifespan is a line item in a compliance spreadsheet, and the numbers still work in their favor. This isn't about recalls and statistics, it's about your family and your vehicle at highway speed. Check your VIN today. Go to nhtsa.gov. If you own a 2021 to 2024 Silverado, Sierra, Tahoe, Suburban, Yukon, or Escalade with the 6.2-liter V8, look for Recall 25V-274. If you own a 2022 to 2024 Tundra, Lexus LX 600, or GX 550, check Recalls 24V-381 and 25V-767. If you own a 2016 to 2020 Honda Pilot, Honda Odyssey, Ridgeline, Acura MDX, or 2018 to 2020 Acura TLX, check Recall 23V-751. Not covered but having issues? File a complaint directly with NHTSA. Your report could trigger the next recall. Cut your oil intervals in half. 5,000 miles maximum. Full synthetic. The cost difference over a year is under $100. An engine replacement is $15,000 to $20,000. Disable start-stop. Every restart drops oil pressure to near zero. Press the button every drive. If your car resets it, a $50 to $100 OBD2 device disables it permanently. Trust your ears. New ticking, knocking, or rattling that wasn't there last week. Pull over. Don't rationalize it. These engines fail without warning. Your instinct may be the only alert you get. The industry will eventually fix these engines. Better designs, improved manufacturing, recalls will close. But right now, millions of vehicles on the road were built to tolerances with almost no margin for error, in a world where error is inevitable. The manufacturers knew the math. They built these engines anyway, because the alternative cost more. Every owner sitting in a service bay making payments on a dead truck is subsidizing that calculation. The engines were designed to the edge of what's physically possible. The only question left is whether yours fails before they figure out exactly where that edge is. Go check your VIN today.